Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on? What's happening? Here we are. Can everybody hear me? All right, let's do it. Wes is not here today. He's in Hawaii, and he was unable to make it. He actually messaged me, I guess, my time, 5 a.m., being like, I can't, the technology's not working out. It's like, dude, you're in Hawaii. Enjoy it. So I'm guessing I'm just going to grab Ray and Slay, and we can just pick up where we left off. So I will try to search those. I'll try to search those guys out if they're not here. Then we'll just figure something else out. Oh, Ray with the professional name change. No longer the Dogfather. He's his government name. And there's Slay. Hell yeah. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Man, what a wonderful day. All right. It's weird not having Wes here to be like, hi, Wes. Just be like, hi. What up, Slay?
Good morning.
Morning, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm feeling good today.
Same here, man. Same here. I'm in an experiment right now to see if I can overcome my allergies without allergy medicine this summer. So far, I'm pretty good.
You're not going hard on that Zyrtec?
No, I'm going to try to not take it. See what happens. So, we'll see. But where the hell's Ray? Dude, did you notice Ray had the name change?
Yeah, I mean, I only know him as the Dogfather,
Sure.
and I like that. You could tell I'm not a fan of government names. I'm really not.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how I feel about this, but I guess if that's how he identifies, then we have to accept that.
That's true.
Oh
man, but yeah, I wanted to pick up on the 12-step stuff is something I've always heard of. I never really went kind of deep into it, and so far, I kind of like what I'm hearing. And it's funny that it's only reserved for, at least from what I can see, it's mostly reserved for people who are in like recovery from like substance abuse or whatever. But yeah, it should be something that's like taught in school. Like there should be some form of like process. I feel like everyone could. I don't know of anyone who could not benefit from doing this.
Yeah, it's helped me. And actually, you know what I wanted to talk about is so we were talking about the 12 steps specifically, and I came on a couple times and was given these sort of qualifiers, these caveats that like, oh, I'm not an expert, I don't represent AA, I don't I've been out of the program with the pandemic and everything. And I sort of stepped back and was asking myself, well, why am I given these qualifiers? And I think there's maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome where I'm like, I'm on here. I'm like, do I belong on here? Do I belong talking about this with anyone? And then there's probably some genuine, some legitimate reasons. Like, I started using cannabis in my sobriety, and that probably doesn't jive with the program. A lot of people in the programs would be like, oh, well, you're not sober. And that's a whole other thing. But I think what and we, in the scorecard meeting today, we watched something and there was a quote. If you can't explain something simply, then you don't know it well enough. I think it was an Einstein quote. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what was holding me back and making me feel like I had to give this qualifier, where saying I'm not an expert, I don't represent it. because it felt really dry and just reading the steps. Because they're there and that's what I know. But if you were a newcomer coming to a meeting, that's not really where I would start. I'd start with pretty much telling you're full of shit. and that you because and for me and for a lot of guys and gals I've met in the programs, you come in and to that first step is where you admit you're powerless and that your life had become unmanageable. And so many people, they want to, obviously they have a problem with something, whether it's alcohol, drugs, porn, whatever it is, gambling. And they seem like they need or they want to stop, but yet they don't want to admit they don't want to admit that they're powerless. They don't want to give up their willpower. And
the thing that you said that for me is like the most striking in the very beginning is like when you have, and I noticed that too, and I didn't really think much of it, like, oh, I'm not like, I'm by no means representing them. And it's, it's like a completely like anonymous, decentralized organization. So, you really can, it's not even them, you're representing your own experience. But I think that's something people can really kind of learn from and think about, of like how often we kind of discount and disqualify all of our own thoughts and opinions. Like, well, look, I'm nobody, but la la la. It's like, how necessary is it to do that, and kind of what does it say about like how people view their own thoughts, opinions, and the validity of what they think and feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was one thing. But with the whole harm reduction thing, because there's a straight sobriety model, and then there's harm reduction, which is like you were saying, it's like, say, I don't know, say it was alcohol. Like, all right, like when I'm powerless or under or against alcohol, but like I think personally it'd be good for people to start kind of laxing it up. And again, it's just a matter of being honest. If someone honestly thinks that they function, I guess, a little bit better, or they can still function with a little bit of cannabis, and it's not like going into like how much weed do you smoke, if you don't mind me asking?
It's been 3 weeks or so. It's do it kind of in between I'm in school right now, do it in between assignments, not every day. And that's probably a sign that I'm not powerless over marijuana. That sure. that I'm not doing it every day.
Yeah. Well, again, at the end of the day, it should be up to the person. So it's like, I understand if the program's there for everyone's benefit, then the biggest thing should be, whatchamacallit, like allowing people to be honest. And if someone actually honestly feels, I understand that, again, like if you're working in the 12 steps, you're working in a group, and you always have those people who are like, I know someone who's like, well, I can't do opiates, but I can definitely take Xanax. I can mess around with it. And then time, experience tells that person blacks out on Xanax and, gets opiates, smokes meth, and it's like, okay, clearly that's not something on the docket for you. But,
yeah,
again, it's, I do agree. There needs to be wiggle room, and it's, a lot of that comes from the classification of different drugs and stuff, and how they're all lumped as one thing. But I'm really trying to get, what the hell is Ray doing, man? Shit is, I've been trying to act like this. I'm not bothered by this, but where is he?
Yeah, he's been my rock in all of this. So, I mean,
yeah.
What?
Well, look, how about this? How about while he figures out his tech, let's jump in from the, whatchamacallit, where we left off.
Yeah. I don't even have them up, the steps.
It's all good, brother. Pop those things up. And, but like you're saying too, there's a couple things in it, this is obviously very specific to like, to like NAAA, but I do think they kind of those same principles and ideas carry into like any kind of thing people are doing. And what the hell is this? All right, step 8. Yeah, race tech is fucked up. But yeah, I think there is something too, like I said, just practicing these, and even the big one too is just being honest. Like a lot of this stuff doesn't really, like especially with the drugs and all this stuff, it really kind of messes people up because it forces them to lie, and then just inhabit a lie, and then it kind of just spirals out of control.
Absolutely, and that's probably one of the legitimate concerns I had about coming on here talking about this, is that I do have my own feelings about these things being so hardline and so set. And in these programs, there's very little room for that. People aren't going to want to hear that. You'll get people who have, decades of sobriety and recovery, and they're not going to want to hear, they're not going to even want to hear about a psychedelic spiritual experience, which is something that's deeply important to me. And anyone no one could tell me. Maybe there's a little wiggle room for telling me I'm not sober because I'm using pot, but ain't nobody gonna tell me that my mystical journey has anything to do with failing at my recovery.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the other thing too is people see these organizations and they go like, they act like they're kind of like carved in stone and they're not living, breathing entities. So I think it just takes more and more people kind of being open and honest and being like, look, man, I hear what you guys are saying, but like that just doesn't jive with, the stuff that I'm experiencing. And I guess only time will tell whether or not like, you eventually spiral off into like a drug fueled fucking craze based on like doing mushrooms once. But, I don't think it's the case, but so it all depends. It's like, there are these things out here, and this is kind of the rub with any kind of prepackaged thing. It's like you can either follow it to a T, which I'm sure there are benefits to that, and then or you can use your own judgment and try to read between the lines. But when you do that, it's like you run the risk of two things, a good risk of like kind of custom crafting the thing into something that you actually need as an individual, or kind of bullshitting yourself back to the same point you were earlier. So it's that's kind of the the risk you take from not just following a thing to the T mindlessly. Although, you can always, I think there's something to be said for trying it first and letting the experience be the guide rather than just reading it and be like, oh, this is bullshit. So it's like giving it a full try, experiencing that, and then going, all right, let me try to plug and play with some stuff and see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ray said we were on step 8, I believe.
So step 8 is I made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. This here is the last step I've ever worked up to. And that's mainly because, and I guess we could just go right to because step 9 is we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And for me to get to that point where I'm making amends with people, I don't know that I could think of, except for maybe like my parents. I don't know if there's anyone who it would do any good for me to reach out and make amends with them. I mean, I honestly like trying to think if maybe an ex-girlfriend, but none of my ex-girlfriends want to hear from me. Well, what good would that do them if I ring them up to apologize?
Sure. I mean, you can depersonalize this too, where it's like, you have, make a list of all people who, you have harmed in any way you think of and become willing to make amends. I think it has less to do with that person. That's just the kind of stuff you dress your mind with as like day-to-day concerns, but that's almost the least important aspect. The most important aspect is the intention, which would be like, let me think of anyone I could have possibly, even if it was like unknowingly, you could have not done it on purpose, but it's like the prime example is like my ex-wife. I didn't like, maliciously like fail our relationship. I just genuinely wasn't equipped. And, maybe they'll hear from you and be like, fuck off, you weirdo. But at the end of the day, if I were to come out and be like, yo, I'm sorry, like I wasn't trying to upset you in any capacity, but I just completely lacked the mental tools, and I had no idea how to navigate a relationship. So there's just something to be like, you're kind of closing the loops on all of the previous bullshit in my opinion, by just recognizing that you had a role in fucking things up. And you could say, well, it wasn't all me. It's like, well, sure, of course not. But it's like, I think that's just, to me, it's just a mind shift change of just being like, owning the things you do. I guess that kind of create your own suffering and being like, hey, and and obviously other people's, and being like, hey, sorry.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And so much of this stuff is, it's you obviously you're doing it for yourself first. And And so recognizing those people that you hurt and admitting it to yourself that you hurt them, and being willing, if the occasion ever arose, to make the amends is you're absolutely right. That's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There he is.
What up, Kings?
He's over here. He's got two handles going, dude.
Dude, like, it was my evil twin, man. It's like in the Lego movie, who is it? Liam Neeson's Good Cop, Bad Cop with the rotating head.
Oh yeah.
So I was listening along and shouting, no, that's not right. That's not right.
I know, I bet.
No, I'm using Slay. Slay, get off this nonsense about you're not qualified to speak on the subject of addiction and misery. Just looking at your face, dude, you are obviously the Albert Einstein of addiction and misery. Okay, so like, you have a lot to share. You have a lot, but but Matt, as you might know, like, all of Slay's disclosures are about like where Slay is at in his journey right now is not a by the book 12 steps, 10 commandments version of the 12-step recovery. So he just makes that disclosure, right? But like, there are as many ways to recover as there are addicts. Like, I wasn't the drinker who guzzled booze in the gutter. Like, I wasn't that kind of like cliche, but
I was.
Once the party, okay, I know, obviously. Once the party, I'm just kidding. Started, I never wanted to stop. Work, drink. When people were finishing their first, I was finishing my second or third, right? So everybody. Now the 12 steps promise the greatest good for the greatest number.
Sure.
That's why they're very strict about it. But like you're a couple years sober from alcohol, right, Slay?
Yep.
So I mean, at this point, awesome, dude. So at this point, I think you're entitled to customize the program to your needs. My sponsor would say no. Your sponsor might say no, but I think that's now going in like day one. The reason it didn't work for me is because I was like, well, I'm not going to tell people I'm an addict or an alcoholic. Step 8 doesn't really work for me. Step 5 doesn't really work for me. But that's just like, that is, a lot of these steps are designed to get you out of your comfort zone.
Well, there's also like I also think the whole like addict versus non-addict almost sets up like I guess that is a real thing. There's a reality to being an addict versus not being an addict, but it's really the underlying thing that's kind of connects everybody is just like the basis of addiction where it comes from, and it's just kind of like that sense of discomfort and not okayness. Some people can cope, some people just sends them off and kind of into oblivion. But I think that's one of like the biggest things of like you were saying, Ray. You're at a party, everyone's drinking one drink, you're drinking 3, and it's like I'm not comfortable. Like, these people seem comfortable. I want to be as comfortable as they are, and the alcohol starts pouring in. Versus like just there's something to be said for just slowly sitting in that discomfort and then just kind of becoming like comfortable that way too.
Absolutely. Alone with your thoughts is like it's not easy, bro. Like it's just that is and we talk about that in the scorecard practice group a lot. It's like that inner voice of criticism. That is so often what I medicate against, right? With alcohol, with drugs. Some people do it with gambling. Some people do it with eating.
Some people do it with work.
Right?
So,
right.
But
I don't think that particular rule applies to anyone on this in this conversation. But
well, here's the other thing too. What was I going to say?
No, but I'm sorry, Matt. You're absolutely correct that some people do it. It's all those things I listed are a form of escape, right? And people definitely use work as an escape.
For sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, so that was what I was really thinking about of like how can you oh this is what I was thinking of. So there was that Jordan Peterson quote where he talks about this in terms of like quitting alcohol, drugs, or any other kind of maladaptive behavior pattern. And how it's not so much that you need to not do the thing that you're doing, but find just a thing is better or more important than it. And I wonder what everyone thinks about that.
Yeah.
Well, what did you find? What did you replace it with?
Well, a few things, and well, what's crazy about it is that there's sort of like maybe a negative feedback loop that happens where when I'm drinking, there's just no way that there's no way I'm gonna have those other things, if that makes sense. There's no way I was gonna get into school. I had my replacement. I guess I had done it backwards, rather than replacing the alcohol with going to school and working and pursuing my dreams. I had replaced all those things with the alcohol, and I had become okay with that. I don't know if that makes
Sure.
sense.
No, I did honestly kind of lose you a little.
100%.
Okay.
To be honest. So here's the way I'm visualizing it.
Well, Matt, I think this is a good point to the last, like the further you get away from step 1 on the list of 12, the more it becomes just this new way of life that Slay is talking about. Am I correct, Slay? That what you're talking about, like you're replacing alcohol with practicing a new way of life, being more honest, following your dreams, going to school.
Yeah. I guess I guess I was just trying to illustrate that you're right, Matt, that you need to replace it with something, and that to begin with, when I'm stuck in my addiction, just that I've done exactly the opposite of that I've replaced all those good things and qualities with something that's just terrible for me.
Gotcha. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's not even so much. I mean, obviously the alcohol and whatever it is, alcohol, porn, gambling, drugs, all that stuff. That can obviously be seen as the enemy in terms of like trying to I need to get away from this stuff. I need to get away from this stuff. And it's like you do. However, it's like simply cutting all that stuff off without addressing, like, let's say, and again, this is just a venture of like based on my own experience. It's all based off of an inner void at the end of the day. There's something missing. There's a sense of incompleteness. There's a sense of like unwantedness or not good enoughness, whatever that is. It's just a kind of a lacking. And that I feel like is the thing that needs to be focused on. Obviously, not drinking brings that to the forefront, but then I feel like that next step, and I feel like this is what the 12 steps do, is like it kind of walks you through kind of confronting that part of you that you've been kind of trying to distance yourself from.
Certainly. And I think that came back to me.
Yeah, word up. And so if we can go back to the
You're a little shaky there, Ray. What'd you say?
I was just saying, what was I saying? If we go back to the steps, like the final steps really echo what you were talking about, where you're not medicating yourself with booze or drugs or porn or addiction or work or whatever escapism. You don't have that fog that's hiding you from the real baggage that's holding you back, right? That inner void. And so for example, step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to prove our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying for knowledge of his will and power to carry that out. So like that addresses the spiritual void, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
and then step 12 starts with having had a spiritual awakening.
Sure. Well, what would you say to people who for some reason are like militantly atheistic and are like, I don't want, the concept of God or spirituality to have anything to do with this? Like, do you know anyone who does this program who just kind of navigates these steps by if they for some reason that thought is like offensive to them? Like, do you think it's possible to do this without that, or do you think that
most of them,
really,
most people?
Okay. So they're just kind of like, I'll just tie this more to like family and stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's so many
Yeah,
people
I have a
have
bit of a lag. I'll give you a quick bullet.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead,
lag.
Slay. Ray's thing's fucked up. What were you saying?
Just so many people come to this stuff hopeless, and they're at such a low point that it is difficult to try and have some idea of God, and let alone like a real faith. And I would just say, um, just look at your community. If you're going to meetings and you let the program, or let your own accomplishments, let the miracles that you come up with in your own life be that higher power. Just see that there's more to it than you. That's for me, the accepting that there's a God wasn't so much about God. It was more about me, and recognizing that I'm not God. I'm a part of something much bigger, and I don't have to understand it just to recognize that part, that my own part in it.
So no, absolutely. I think that's a great explanation. What do you think that does in terms of like, let's say, taking like I guess the magnifying glass down a little bit off of your own importance, and instead kind of viewing yourself in the context of all of the systems you kind of participate in, the people you participate in life with, and I kind of understand it as well. If like it takes just this weird pressure off of yourself to kind of like, rather than trying to like, like again, it's like rather than trying to be the best, you focus on doing your best for this kind of larger picture that you're a part of. And what do you think about that in terms of like, I guess, calming people down or helping them kind of align themselves with a way that kind of works that's not so destructive?
Well, I think what you said, uh, it speaks to the fact that life goes on, and the world is moving around you, and if you're just so centered on yourself, then that's a block, that's a roadblock. And if you're always looking inward, then you're not looking outward, and you don't have that macroscopic picture. Like you said, pulling the magnifying glass back, it can be humbling, and it can be sort of it can tamp down your ego, but it also just in general can give you a sense of like, oh wow, there's this whole big world out there that maybe I wasn't looking at. I was just so hell-bent on myself.
Yeah. Well, there's something Jordan said that I think is a good point. He was like, the more you talk with people one-on-one, you might find that it affects people or yourself more negatively than you think. And it's like, this might be a funny example of that. But I remember, this was like years ago, and this is going to sound ridiculous compared to like, alcohol, drug abuse. But I remember talking to I think it was like a chiropractor, nutritionist, and I had all these weird food allergies, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And he was like, well, how about milk? Do you drink milk? And I was like, I drink milk all the time. He's like, well, does it affect you negatively? I'm like, no, it just makes me really congested. He was like, that affects you negatively then. I was like, no, I'm just congested. And he's like, that's a negative effect. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. So yeah, sometimes you do need to just talk to other people.
Yeah, that's
Ray,
so
Ray
true.
needs to come. Sorry, Ray, you need to come out. You need to leave and come back in again. For some reason, oh, you know what? No, don't do that. Let me see. This fucking tech with this stuff is brutal. Here we go. All right, there we go. Now I can do it. Come on.
I think that the dairy thing though, Matt, is a great example. I don't think that's silly compared to the drugs and alcohol at all. It actually is probably a great way to relate it to other people who maybe aren't willing to admit they have an actual addiction. Maybe they have come to the conclusion about something less serious, where they were like, oh wow, I was wrong about this. I was not able to see that dairy products were screwing me up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe a great analogous thing to illustrate it to people.
Well, and the reason
Word up.
why is because I grew up in a environment where it'd be like, if you were just had a little bit of phlegm, and you're like, I'm congested. They'd be like, shut up, like you'll be fine. Which again, there's like certain utility to that mindset, but like, yeah, to someone talking to someone who comes from a totally different system, totally different context than you, who can be like, you shouldn't be congested, dude. That's fucked up. And you're like, I don't know, I thought everyone's congested. He's like, no. So, and again, you would obviously have things like blind spots you could identify for other people, but I feel like that is one of the biggest things for the AANA is like, drugs, all that stuff aside, which, it's a serious problem and all that stuff, but just being able to go and, from my opinion, talk to a bunch of people, hear different perspectives, and be in a place where people are ready to just share in a totally open and honest way. And I think coming off of like a real wicked drug addiction puts people in that space, but it's almost like, why do we even need that to be that open, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, why do we need it, right? Why are we so blocked from these things? But I would say, to any dogs or anyone who, even if you think you have a problem, if you even have the slightest doubt about your control over some of your urges, do it. Go to a meeting, talk to people, and don't just go. Stay afterwards. I know it's different now with Zoom and everything, but the most important thing I would tell a newcomer is stay after the meeting and talk to somebody, because you're going to get some real help there. Express your doubts about everything. You heard something you don't like, speak up, because someone will give you that other opinion, that outside view.
Hell yeah.
Word. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man, you sound good.
So and again, like it, this is like it's not by accident. There are 12 steps, and each word is a universe, right? And so, like, when they use the word God, at the beginning, they use the word higher power, just because, or they use God as we understand Him, right? That language, in order to make it as broad as possible, right? And part of the whole God higher power function is like taking the decision-making power out of yourselves. Addiction seeks to isolate us, right? The world doesn't understand me. I'm going to keep crushing these beers or whatever, or crushing these like YouPorn videos, whatever it is, or like keep gambling. So like the higher power and the group function and like the meetings of like in the circle of chairs in the church basement, it takes the decision-making power out of your hands, because how's it been going for you so far, and your decision making if you've ended up sitting in this church basement, right? So taking so
no, I agree, and I like I said, we'll finish up the last of them just so we kind of can have all of these things done and we can kind of go back and reflect on that. But I do think there is again, the biggest hang up with all this stuff is, like you were saying, kind of, Ray, like you have someone or no, I think Slay was saying this. It's like, just go see and check it out. And you have people come in and a bunch of stuff gets triggered. Like, this is like a cult. I don't know. This is a cult. And it's like, dude, like, I don't think anyone's asking for money for you. If you're a girl, there might be dudes trying to fuck you. Be on the guard for that. That's part of life. Anywhere you go, if you're at a job, the same thing will happen. But yeah.
And Matt, that's the question I had for you. Is like, why? I wonder why, maybe evolutionarily or anthropologically, why are in the current manifestation of humanity, are we so reluctant to share open and honestly, right? Why is our default position having our guard up? That's something maybe you can speak to.
Because they used to burn people at the stake for it and kill people, and they'd be like, "Here's what I think," and they're like, "No." I think it's just a risk, because our minds are always trying to stay kind of in with the group, and we evolved to, like, if you were kicked out of the group, you were basically fed to the jungle. So it's like that scares the shit out of us. But in terms of all this other, a lot of, like I said, like, say someone recognizes, like you were saying, you realize your decisions aren't working on some level, so you go to the group, you go there and you go, like, I'm not one of these guys, and you're like, I'm not one of these guys. I'm because when you think of sobriety, people think like you're going to be with like 4 other people in button-down shirts drinking like Pepsi in a pizza place on a Friday night, and it's like, It's like you have to cut yourself off from all of society, otherwise you'll fall back into like your negative stuff. But really, like I said, I think the more people kind of custom tailor it and, and just kind of not just do it, but keep showing up there, keep being like, hey, I hear what you guys are saying. I know you guys are looking out for me. I know you think I'm like going to spiral off into just like this horrible state. The more that happens, I feel like that kind of branches that circle and program out to like reach a wider audience a little bit. So it doesn't feel like people are cutting themselves off from all their relationships in a way, if that makes sense.
Word. And that's what 12 step, that's like the perfect segue into the final step, right? Like having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts or alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. So like there's the service to others component, right?
Yeah.
And maybe and Matt, like you're not getting rich off these crowdcasts. Like this is your service to others, right? Like listening and sharing.
What also helps, again, once you realize that that's the thing that helps you as well. Like this helps me tremendously. It keeps me kind of on par. It like, it makes me just not like, just my usual bullshit is a lot different than kind of, again, for me personally, it was never really, drinking I could take or leave. Drugs never really had much of an appeal to me. Like, there was some like sex stuff here and there that was kind of, that was my only feel of like being like, no, and watching my body like move in a direction I didn't want it to go and being like, oh, okay, this is what people are talking about. Just like starting to like salivate and shit. And you're like, oh, there's something in me right now. But yeah, man. So it's like, and even if you've never experienced something like that, it's like you could just fade out into just, kind of being bored and not really doing anything. So I feel like no matter what the problem is, it kind of behooves people to just start communicating honestly, recognizing the fact that you are indeed playing a role in other people's suffering. Even like, dude, I really was convinced even just a few weeks ago, like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm not at all. And then, obviously I had a different experience and I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst actually. Like, oh my God, this is horrible.
That's what we've been telling you, Matt.
You're right. You absolutely were right. But it's one of those things where it's like, just having, because we don't have anything like this, man. The only other alternatives, it's like our systems of meaning are blocked by dogma, where it's like, you want to go to AA and connect with people. It's like, well, you can't do it. If you do this, you're fucking out. And you're like, well, that doesn't seem very authentic. You want to go to church. If you even question this, you're fucking out. And it's like having more of a kind of a living, breathing, recognizing that all of these things and institutions need your conscious input and all of our conscious input in order to grow and adapt and become even better. So, and also the guy who invented AA also really believed that all of you guys should have done LSD.
That was the 13th step. So there's two things. So there's a joke in the program. Have you heard of the 13th step?
No.
Slay?
I'm a long-time 13th stepper. That was the first step I completed.
No, there's two definitions. What's 13th step are you talking about?
Going after being there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, hooking up with women in the program.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing is, so you, guys like me and Slay are so committed to our recovery that we just put the pedal to the metal and we go like right through steps 1 to 12 and we kind of overshoot it right into step 13.
Yeah.
We do a couple of donuts in step 13 and then we reverse it back into step 12.
So
but there's also anecdote. There's also some like story that like the guy who started AA in the 60s really thought that the mushrooms or like psychedelics are a good like master's program once you've completed the 12 steps.
Yeah.
Complement the spiritual awakening, right? But that, again, because that's a mood altering, mind altering substance, it's kind of unclear whether that's myth or truth, and it was never really adopted by the program.
Sure, and it makes sense too because that thing would get shut down immediately. So then at that point you'd have a mystical church, and then like the orgies would continue. So the 13th step would just perpetuate, and it's just an absolute orgy. But yeah, I mean, again, it's none of this is like do this or you should do this or that. It's really a matter of being able to decide what works for you, what doesn't, and then again trying to really stretch that process out, like get that process out of your head and just experience it. Like, that's not for me. That shit seems weird. It's like, well, go. And then if you go, you could articulate exactly why you think it, it's flawed or wrong, rather than just being like observing from really just seeing it in your own head and being like, yep, I'm right, without even experiencing it. So yeah, I think there is, especially now, people have been kind of cut off from contact, and obviously people's economic situations changed. So I think it is good for anyone who thinks like the things they're doing aren't working. It's just cool to know that you can go, even if say and I know this for a fact, if I were to walk in there and be like, dude, like I don't really even drink that much, I don't do this, but I just feel like my life's fucked up, nobody would be like, get out of here, dude. They'd be like, oh, what's up, dude? You know what I mean? So, I think it's a resource people should take advantage of. And it's one of the few resources that I feel like is, it's pretty democratic. Obviously there are people who are like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not doing it right, but they're not going to be like, get out. Am I wrong about that?
No, absolutely not. And when we talked about, finding a community and communicating openly and honestly, if that's something you want, you will definitely get that there. And you're not, I think so much of our culture is like, there's like a culture of shame and embarrassment. And in the programs, you won't get any of that. That's right. Once you're in the door, that's out the door. You can go in there and talk about pretty much whatever you want, as long as you're not, in there with
selling drugs, basically. Which
yeah.
And I think that and I think I probably speak for Slay and I, is that the 12-step really prepared us to join Rhomas and jump in with both feet, because 12-step is free and it's voluntary, and no matter how many times you screw up, you're welcome back, as long as you're committed to progress. You're on the path of progress, right? It's a community. It's a community of people with shared goals. And so again, and maybe that's why you and Wes wanted to examine this further, because it really overlaps so well with Rhomas. And now that Slay and I have the daily craving and compulsion under control, Rhomas really provides a lot of that function in terms of graduating from stopping constant addiction and alcohol abuse to that better way of life, right? Where Rhomas gives us really a roadmap for that better way of life. Am I right,
Absolutely.
Slay?
No, I think you're saying.
Yeah, I see Chalupa Cabra calling it a fraternity in the chat, and it is
in a good way.
Yes, and so far I see this really as this fraternal organization that's provided me with a supportive community. It's like this is one of the, if not the best thing I've got going in my life right now. This is great. And Matt, I can't thank you enough just for giving your time and facilitating all of this.
Dude, please. It's again, this is just a 360 win for everybody. I really enjoyed doing this, and it's been fun. Like I always just thank Wes. I'm like, dude, because I was like deeply frustrated, man. I wasn't like getting my stuff done. I was kind of like blocked by a ton of weird fear stuff, and just doing this was just like overcoming. It was just kind of taking out one of those blocks. It's like I always wanted to like kind of have. I went to AA once as a part of like school. They're like, you got to go to a group meeting. And I went in there and watched it, and I'm like, damn, this should just exist. Like, this needs to exist in a larger context than just like specifically drug, sex, whatever. Like,
agnostic as to addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I could thank Wes. I could thank Matt, but I gotta thank God, because
that's what I'm talking about.
It didn't have to be this good, boys.
Absolutely.
But it's great.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. Well, I'm gonna chuck up this poll real quick. I got Ray, Slay, Jordan, Tiger Boy. I'm gonna toss.
No, I'm retired. No, Matt, take me down, bro.
My bad. I forgot.
I'm retired. Having one dude of the month. It's just not fair to put me up there, because I'll just it's just like it's like putting it's like a Kennedy in Massachusetts or something. It's not a fair fight.
Well, here we go. It's up right now. If anyone wants to pop up there, go. I got Slay, I got Jordan, I got Tiger Boy, I got Gunth, got Chalupa Cobb.
Troy was mentioning the running challenge. I don't know if you want to throw him up on the. You want to talk about that briefly, because it is the end of the month.
Fuck yeah.
Or I don't mean put him on the poll. You can put him up on the screen or the poll or whatever you want to do.
No, this is perfect.
Guys, I see this poll. I'm telling you, my vote's Jordan. Just in case you care about my input.
Oh yeah,
Jordan
yeah.
Dude.
Slay, stop putting your thumb on the scale there, buddy.
Oh, wild, wild west tricks.
Well, but no, in a week where we're talking about sobriety and stuff, I chatting a little with Jordan, and I know he's putting in the work. And,
he's showing up.
Man.
Yeah. Being honest, being vulnerable.
Yeah, he rules.
He's out there in like cow country.
True.
He's not doing his Miami Vice thing. I should be docked. I should be docked a couple of points for living this good, boys.
Oh, I thought you said you wanted to be doxxed.
Oh no, I did that to myself, man. There were no takers.
Well, it looks like Jordan has a commanding lead.
By a mile, bro.
I'm gonna give it to the Jordan. Give it to Jordash. Jordan, and let me know how many. Oh, Mandy just got another one. Let me know how many. Jordan, let me know how many you have. I feel like you're creeping up on a couple here, man. You might be grabbing.
Yeah, dude. He might be up in Valhalla with me soon.
Exactly. He might be in Valhalla. All
Matt,
right, well, dudes.
Seriously, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Slay, and thank you to all the dogs. Like Wes says, it's a circle, right? And it really is true. It's like, yeah.
Dude, well, no, thanks for you two for coming on here and doing this, man. A lot of people, again, get real in their head about, like, oh, I don't want to share this. I don't want to talk about this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, that's the only way forward, man.
Now, if we have a few more minutes, I just want to promote my new energy drink company. What
you got?
I'm kidding. Fuck off. I'm kidding. I'm here for the dogs. I'm here to tell my story. And also, like you said, in the terms of the service model, it's selfish. It actually helps me to share open and honestly. Like nobody benefits more than me. Maybe some guy out there is connecting with my story and he can re-examine his life. But really, it's selfish. Like this reminds me what's important to me.
I agree. And that's what it's all about, aligning, like you said. You're not totally throwing yourself out. You're not totally, worried about yourself. It's like aligning your own needs with kind of that greater picture. And that's kind of, that's the whole power versus force model. But, All right, dudes.
So crush that weekend, y'all. See you on Monday.
Thanks, guys.
Adios.